I don't think it's in an inning. This is the national anthem. It's just getting started. And when silver moves, we move. Silver pulls back, we'll pull back a little bit. From a psychological point of view, yes. I can tell with the bankers already, they're searching for good silver projects. They're phoning us now.
Yeah.
Now that's a good sign, and they're phoning us because of the commodity pricing. We've talked about this for years, and now it's happened.
I'm here with Michael Williams, Executive Chair and Founder of Aftermath Silver. This is a very interesting project we'll be talking about, but let's start with Michael's take on the silver market here at the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference. Welcome to the show, Michael. Good to see you.
Hey, David, thanks for having me on. My take, coincidentally...
How long have you been waiting for $100 silver?
A lifetime. When I started in the business, silver was $6. And if it ever went to 20, we would have thought it was a panacea. But as things have evolved, my flagship project, Barangila, which has a big silver content, I think silver was trading when we were negotiating 5 years with SSR, Silver Standard Resources, at around 18, but it was moving up. And by the time we concluded negotiations, it was 23. So at the time, as the executive chair of the company, I really wasn't looking forward. I was looking backward and thinking, okay, if silver pulls back again to 15, is this project going to be economic? And I think as senior management, you need to do that. But one of my big shareholders, in fact, my biggest shareholder is Eric Sprott. And as you well know, Eric's a big silver fan. And Eric, we're one of his biggest holdings because of the silver. And Eric's always told me, he said, by the end of 25, expect silver to be what did he say? He said $80, and he was correct.
When did he say this?
He said it, he's been saying it for a long time, but at the beginning of January of 25, I asked him what his expectations were. He said, we'll see $80 silver by the end of the year.
January 25, it was still way under $30.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But Eric's always been a big proponent of, he thinks, and I don't deem to speak for Eric, but yeah. Eric said, look at the silver gold ratio, it's way undervalued. And also I think his thesis was there were some banks that had been shorting that manipulate the markets. And I think if you look today, you asked me about silver, it looks like JP Morgan needs to cover a big short, and that's been what we've been seeing. There
but
are
fact
guys
that he called for $80 silver by the end of the year, now end of the decade. He expected, well, you as well probably. You guys expected a big run this year. What events did you have in mind that would have triggered this run this year?
I think A, short covering.
Okay.
And B, an aligning of the gold-silver ratio to more of historic proportions, 50-1, maybe even less. At the time we were looking at $80 to $90 per one. So he just thought that was out of equilibrium and needed to adjust, and we agreed. The other thing, the reason I wanted to build a silver company was I saw the industrial use of silver, go from the 30s to the point now it's 65% of all use is for industrial. And look, I don't think AI is going anywhere. Electrification is not going anywhere. And we need silver for that. It's the most conductive metal on the planet. If you look at all the solar panel use, they need silver. So we've been in deficit for, 3 years now?
Yeah.
So I'm very bullish on silver going forward. Now I'm hearing Eric is saying he expects like $200 silver isn't out of the realm. I wasn't a believer in that 4 or 5 years ago, but I certainly am now, and I see the reasoning behind it. I never thought I'd see silver trading above 100, and here we are today.
$6 silver when you started in the industry. At the time, what were the predominant industrial use cases for silver at $6, and how have those use cases changed over the years to now?
It was, the industrial use was primarily for photography.
Okay.
Kodak, that type of thing. So as the old analog photography went by the wayside and we had the digital, we lost that. And we lost the torque that we got from that industry. The other big thing was always India. And I always said at the time, I started in '96. I don't want people to think I'm too old. I guess I kind of am. But when I started, silver was viewed as the devil's metal. It never traded like its fundamentals, and you'd always see a lot of silver traded when it spiked up from India. Was a big end user, and then when they were through their wedding season, it would pull back a little bit. But someone told me a long time ago that one thing to watch with silver is zinc, because a lot of companies are really lead zinc producers that have a reasonable amount of silver, and some, the only thing they have in common with silver, it's in their name. So as the price of zinc comes up, marginal zinc deposits go into production, and silver is a byproduct. Now, having said that, with these metal prices, they're probably now legitimate silver dominant companies. So those are the things that I kind of look for. But the reason I liked our Barangila that we picked up, I always worry about silver when it pulls back, if it pulls back, because a lot of the silver producers tend to be cobbled together underground operations. Our business model was to focus on open pit because your operating costs are low. So we've got the Barangila flagship property. It's the breakout is, I think it's now 100 and...
That's in Peru.
That's
in
in
audience,
southern Peru.
Yeah.
Hosted within, close to infrastructure. But that's at 124 million ounces of silver measured and indicated, and a further, 25 million ounces in inferred. So it's big. It could be, David, and I don't say this nonchalantly, I think if it was just a standalone silver, it's one of the bigger development stories globally. And then you've got almost an equal amount of copper. We have 1 billion pounds of copper. And then you're looking at a product called manganese, but there's lots of manganese globally. But what is in short supply is manganese sulfate, high purity manganese, that stems from oxide deposits, Barangila's oxide. It can be used in the EV battery space, in the cathode, and we could be one of the significant players globally in that space as well, based on what we've seen and what we've put out to date.
I want to come back to your projects and developments in just a bit, but tell us about the incentive price for producers today. What's the number you think?
To produce all-in sustaining costs? Or the silver price?
The silver price below which there's little incentive to expand production or continue production.
I'm going to take a stab at this, but I would say below 30, 35.
I've heard that.
Is what I would suggest. Assuming you have a decent infrastructure, your all-in sustaining costs aren't egregious, and it's not expensive to extract.
What is the typical all-in sustaining cost, the industry average today?
Oh, I think it's probably around 20, maybe a little bit lower,
okay.
20, 22.
Okay.
Having said that, we have been in an inflationary period.
Yeah.
And a lot of these silver companies don't put economics out, and you need to see at least their scoping or pre-feasibility study, PEA, preliminary economic, to see what prices they're using. Give you an example. We just put out a 43-101 resource. I think we used $29 or $30 silver. We're looking internally, what does it mean at $50 silver? And the leverage and torque is tremendous when you start to get into your 40s and 50s.
Okay. And how do you, as a CEO, maintain leverage and torque to the silver price for the investors?
Well, what we have done, and we drilled, I think we drilled 90 drill holes, in the previous 2 years, added to the silver resource, and we also, they intersected some high-grade silver. So we try add it to our balance sheet by increasing the resource, and we're fortunate that we offer that leverage. So, one of the things we'll be doing going forward is part of our pre-feasibility study is analyzing, trying to maximize the amount of silver we can produce every year.
So let's just give some perspective to the audience on what you're doing now versus a couple of years ago, when the silver price was basically flat between 2014 and it started moving up in 2020. But then there was a between 2014 and 2015, 2020, it was basically trading around 13 to 15 bucks an ounce.
Yep.
Post 2020, we were hovering between $13 to $20, $25 an ounce. So there were these two plateaus on which silver traded for multiple years, and the industry was basically flat.
Right.
What was the industry, and what were you doing at the time, and what are your operations now versus back then?
Okay, there is one big change within the company. We have a secondary project called Chayacoyo.
Yeah.
It's 35 million ounces measured and indicated with another 10 million inferred. So it's a decent size, also open pit. Now that's in northern Chile. We did not drill it until silver went through 40, I think it was $45. We go, okay, we're in a bona fide silver market now. So what I was worried about, David, before was if I did drill it and put out good drill results, the market wouldn't react because people were taking, I thought, a what-see attitude towards silver. Well, silver's never going to go through 40. Well, it did. Oh, okay, what happens if it goes through 50? It has. But now everybody I think it's time to drill Chayacoyo concurrently with Barranquilla. So we are going to take monies that we would have put over in Barranquilla, and we can also drill Chayacoyo. And if we do hit, we expect it to be accretive. So that's one big change. The other thing, we're fortunate at Barranquilla because it's polymetallic. So, but if you ask me, we're sitting with a $400 million market cap today.
Yeah.
I would say 80% of the value is attributed to silver.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of room to grow, especially at these prices. If we maintain silver, and I'm going to say be very conservative, north of 50, that's a boon for us. That's nirvana.
Well, I'm going to just state the price performance for Aftermath Silver has been exceptional in the last 1 year.
Yeah.
Exactly 1 year ago, the stock was trading at 49 cents a share, and today it's at 124.
Right.
However, there's still not enough leverage to incentivize some investors to take that risk into your company or other companies in the space. That's a 3x move. Silver also 3x'd. So if an investor were to say to you, Michael, your company seems great project, but I could have just bought silver and had similar returns in the last 1 year, why bother looking into the junior sector or exploration sector? What would your response be?
Well, I think that was an argument you could have made in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
The ETFs are outperforming the juniors. Certainly the physical has been strong.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we're one of the biggest silver stories out there based on our current resource. We also have close to rail, power, people. So we've got infrastructure. The deposit comes right to surface, so you've got to think actual mining should be de-risked. We've got enough ore. If you look at our 4301, de-risked. What I've just got the manganese always has issues with metallurgy. Historically, that's why this deposit was still there. Mm-hmm. We're using hydrometallurgical process, and we've put out numbers that show our recoveries are now high 80s, low 90s. So we've de-risked it from that point of view. The pre-feasibility will show the economics. And look, I'll let your audience judge us on the numbers. It'll be quantifiable.
Yeah.
But I think we have a long way to go in silver. I think we're just, I was asked the other day at one of the shows we were at, what inning I thought the silver market was, using a baseball analogy, and I don't think it's in an inning. This is the national anthem. It's just getting started. And when silver moves, we move. If silver pulls back, we'll pull back a little bit. But look at us like this.
Right.
If you hold us for silver, it's like owning a unit in a financing. The share is the silver, and maybe the copper, but the manganese is your warrant. But that warrant could be very special. Once you start, I think manganese, because it's used in the EV battery space, is another lithium, it's another cobalt, it's another nickel. Every battery chemistry has an M in it, so when you combine that with the torque that we have with silver, it becomes compelling.
Well, how much of your deposit is manganese versus silver or other metals?
When manganese was trading at, call it $30,
Yeah.
copper was trading at $4, manganese in the U.S. is $2,500. 70% of the value could have been in the manganese side. But now I've got to think 50%, getting close to 50 has got to be on the silver side.
Okay, but how much of the metal in the ground is silver versus other metals?
Well, silver now is probably 40%.
Okay.
Copper's probably
Okay.
20%, and maybe manganese is 60%.
I see.
60%.
So several executives and
40.
analysts have told me that the valuations of their companies aren't even fully reflected with the present spot price. So $413 million market cap, $418 million market cap for your company. What would you say, if you had to back that out, what would you say is the silver price behind that valuation, if you had to make an assumption there?
First of all, have you ever met a CEO that said his company was fully valued? Right?
Well, at least he's honest.
So, but you asked me earlier, you saw a big increase in the pricing.
Yeah.
The reason you saw that was it was 82 drill holes that we publicly put out. We hit on 93% of them, so that helped us raise up, and we had some really good silver numbers.
Okay.
With that. So I think getting to your question, we're one of the high-profile silver companies. So now you're seeing, we were looking at silver at $30, $40 we were getting credit for. As people start to realize that at these metal prices with our ounces in the ground, there's a long way to go.
Here's the thing, that the banks, the sell-side analysts, they haven't changed their underlying gold and silver price assumptions for their net asset value models, at least not dramatically. They're still using maybe $3,500 or $3,000 gold, $35 silver. And so maybe either they're being conservative or they're not expecting this rally to be sustainable.
Maybe it's a little bit of both. I find the bankers are always conservative.
Right.
But because I think the question you should be asking the CEOs is, if you were to do a feasibility study,
sure,
what metal price would you use? And you tend to use whatever the going price is that the bankers are using. And I think the bankers probably are right now, because they tend to be conservative, 30, 35. But if you're an investor, you want them to use conservative pricing, but you also want to see what the sensitivities are.
Yeah.
That's another question that you need to put out so you want to cover off your downside. As I say, I've seen silver. It's ripping right now. Everyone's happy. I look at this show there. But it could pull back to $50, which is a great silver.
Right.
If your project cannot make money, $35 to $50 silver, in my opinion, you don't have a tier 1 asset. You maybe have a tier 2 asset, which means it needs those very high prices, and in bad prices, it does okay. A tier 3 asset only makes money in a good market like this. But they're hard to finance. Because if you look at the CapEx to put a mine into production now, when I came into the industry, $500 million was a big project. Now, companies are looking at $1 billion in some cases, $600 million. You better have your economics in line, because that's still a lot of money. So I think you want to look conservatively, but show the opportunity to do with the sensitivities on the metal pricing.
It always worries me when their CapEx is greater than the market cap. Like, how does that work?
Well, I always look at if the CapEx is greater than the NPV.
Okay.
Yeah, but same thing.
Yeah.
It's it doesn't work. I guess that's a short answer. You should look, unless there's a fundamental reason, something's coming on stream later. But if you have an NPV or a CapEx that's greater than a market cap greater than the CapEx, that's a flag for sure.
I mean, other way around, CapEx greater than the market cap.
CapEx market. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Some executives would still try to convince investors that it would work. So I guess the bridge to getting the capital without dilution, I mean, what are the strategies there?
Well, I think what it is, the strategy is your engineers.
Okay.
need to demonstrate that you can keep your costs in line, so you can demonstrate to the market you have an internal rate of return 25 to 30% minimum, and your NPV is greater than your market cap.
Yeah.
But they also need to demonstrate that you've used realistic pricing and realistic recoveries, things like that. So the fundamentals look, I can go to an engineering firm tomorrow and come out with some spectacular numbers, but they don't hold up.
Yeah.
You know, maybe the pit wall isn't, it's too aggressive, and you'll never mine it at that rate, or they put a strip ratio in that doesn't make sense.
Well,
so you've got to really know your engineering.
So we're at $100 silver fundamentally for the silver producers, developers, and explorers, and the juniors. Does $100 fundamentally differ than $50 when it comes to raising capital, fundraising, exploration, drilling, or even just production? Like, does it make a material difference for the industry?
Well, the issue is you need sustainable prices, right? So fundamentally, if you were financing that, David, no, it doesn't make a difference, because it hasn't been above $100 for, I think we're talking a week. and they like to see years before they're comfortable on using, if this was, we were talking in 5 years, it's still $100, you could use consensus pricing, might be 80.
Sure.
But what it does differ, and this is huge in our industry, from a psychological point of view, yes. I can tell with the bankers already, they're searching for good silver projects. They're phoning us now.
Yeah.
Now that's a good sign, and they're phoning us because of the commodity pricing. We've talked about this for years, and now it's happened.
Right. On your road shows, what are some of the concerns that investors brought up, or questions, very common questions that maybe people are asking you now versus a couple of years ago? How have their sentiments changed?
Well, they're now knowing, look, these guys they've got the management team to put this into production.
Yeah.
What about, are you worried about Peru? Because Peru, I always said Peru was one of the best jurisdictions in Latin America. I believe that to this day.
Because of the geology?
Well, the mineral endowment is excellent. It's one of the biggest producers of copper and silver on a global stage. 13% of their GDP is mining. But the government has always been very supportive of mining. It's a mining country. I don't go to bed at night and worry about losing the project. Where Peru has been a bit problematic, they've had, 7 or 8 presidents in 10 years.
Yeah.
But their Congress isn't like the U.S. Their presidency isn't like the U.S. You don't have a lot of power in the executive branch. It lies in their Congress, which is always centrist. Mm-hmm. So from that point of view, it's been really good.
Okay.
Because they always seem to do the right thing to help the industry. Sometimes it's from the right side, sometimes it's from their left.
Right.
But it always kind of is in the middle, and we just want certainty. And look, David, the model has changed. We don't just deal with the capitals anymore. You have to have the local communities on side.
Yeah.
And that's been for the last 10 years, which we do. But the other thing that I get asked on, can you produce an economic silver product? And it looks like we'll produce a silver doré bars.
Yeah.
Can you produce an economic copper project? Looks like we'll be able to produce either SXEW copper, or we'll produce a sulfide concentrate. That'll all come out in the PFS. And can you produce an economic manganese product? Now, my CEO and myself, Ralph Rushton, were joking this morning. Next time we put a company together, once we monetize this, if we monetize it, we'd love just to have pure gold or pure copper, because it's a lot easier for the markets. Having the manganese, it makes it more convoluted, it's more nuanced, but once you get over that hurdle, it's also, in our opinion, becomes very special.
What's
and worth
manganese used for?
EV car batteries.
Okay.
There is ferromanganese in the steel industry.
Yeah.
That's not the type we have. We have the type of manganese
that
it has to be. There's only 10 or 12 of us probably globally, and I think we're going to be one of the largest. And one of the things we're looking at is working with the U.S. in order to process there. China processes 93% of world's manganese.
Yeah.
you've seen how they can weaponize critical metals quickly.
Sure.
U.S. Does not want manganese to be weaponized down the road, so they want their own secure source. Coming from Peru is not go through the Panama Canal into the southern states and process. You've got low energy costs, you've got the reagents there, and you've got industry there that would end users.
Have you changed your tactics or strategy at all after Maduro was taken out by U.S. forces in Venezuela? Has that made a signal to your mind of maybe what's next for the rest of Latin America and Peru, and maybe you should prepare for any such changes?
Well, that's a good question. On the overall view, no.
Okay.
Because when Venezuela, we always knew was a difficult place because of Maduro, Chavez before.
Yeah.
So we shied away geologically from that area, but we've got to look at some of the other regions in Latin America. Like Colombia used to be a pretty good place for junior companies to do business. Under the current government, no, and the U.S. is butting heads with Colombia. Peru is considered, I would call it an ally of the U.S., but if we're processing in the U.S. with, the government's looking at putting money into these type of facilities, and if anything were to go wrong in Peru, which I don't think it ever would, it's always good to have the U.S. government on side.
You're not concerned about nationalization?
Not in Peru, not in Chile.
Okay.
No. In Bolivia, Ecuador, I think it's more prevalent. If you look at the two best jurisdictions in Latin America, it's Chile and Peru. Mm-hmm. Then you've got your Bolivias, Ecuadors. Argentina is now on the rise because of Milei.
Yeah.
But I always say I'd like Milei to get a second term, because then I know that conservative, right-of-center government, it's caught on with the people. You don't want to be whipsawed.
Sure. Do you think the equity risk premium in your company is reflected properly because of the lower jurisdictional risk?
I think so.
Okay.
I noticed, though, I will say this, David, when the government 4 years ago came into power, a lot of capital left Peru temporarily, and a lot of the investment community, capital markets, were on the sidelines. When it kind of quickly went back to the center, everybody goes, okay, this is not another Venezuela, business as usual. And the Peruvian government said, look, we will guarantee foreign investment.
Well, let's finish off in the future. When you're planning the next steps of Aftermath, and please let us know what the next milestones are.
Happy.
What kind of silver market are you assuming you're going to be operating in?
Okay, as management and as the chair, I will think to myself, okay, we're in a $50 silver market.
Okay.
So all my contingencies will be 50. This is a bonus, and if it keeps on going, it's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But I will look backwards a little bit, and when we're doing our internal numbers and what the numbers we use on the pre-feasibility study, we will be around that 35, 50 range, just to be conservative.
Sure.
So that's one thing I'm going to look to. Now, we have the Barranquilla deposit. It's called a carbonate replacement. It's come from fluids that came from a volcanic intrusive source that have formed the deposit. We are also going to look for the source this year. Our last hole, as we went east on the project, copper grades increased. Generally, from a geological point of view, that means you're getting close to the heat source. I think our last hole was 150 meters of 1.12% copper, 289 grams, and 7% manganese. That's one of the best holes hit in the copper industry last year. So we want to know, okay, we got a big silver resource, we've got big copper and big manganese. What else is there? I want to take it from a tier one to potentially, if you find another deposit there, becomes, in my opinion, a world-class mining district. And there's a skarn mineralization 4 or 5 kilometers away that gets drill tested.
Sure.
So the shareholders, even though we've got a lot of engineering going on in the background, they'll get drill results, and we'll do some infill drilling as well. So it's going to be a good year for us.
Final question before I let you go. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your own professional background, and how you transitioned from your prior experiences into Aftermath Silver.
Oh, okay. Well, I was actually, I'm 30 years now in the industry, so it's been the majority of my career. But before that, I was sort of a marketing PR person, and I did a lot of government relations and political things. So that kind of has translated well into our industry, because a lot of what I do, I basically handle the capital markets and help bring in the smart technical people. These companies, any good project can raise money. Now, every good project needs smart technical people, A, to find it, B, advance it. So I always help with that and brought in Ralph Rushton, the CEO. He's put together the technical team there will allow us, if we want, to go into production. But I came into the industry, and I worked for a company called Atna Resources for 7 years, kind of learned the ropes. It was a high-profile company in its day. Had a big project in the Yukon, worked for a wonderful CEO president named Peter Delancey.
Yeah.
And then from there, I formed my own group in the early thousands with a gentleman named Rob McLeod, who's one of the best geos that I know, and and we made a discovery called Underworld, and that was to the technical team's credit. And Underworld was quickly sold to Kinross. And so once you have a win, David, in the capital markets and within the industry, I think you go up a level and you have access to better projects, you have access to capital, which are two things that make these junior markets hum. And they're necessities. And people that have been involved in one discovery, one monetization, tend to have multiple for those very reasons. Now, what I changed in my strategy, Underworld was a grassroots discovery. No drill holes into it. What I liked about where we are at Barranquilla, and Barranquilla will be a magnitude bigger, just of what we have today. It already had a resource. We thought we could expand on it and make it work, and that's what we've done. Okay. And there's still a lot of upside to go. So there was a safety net for the shareholders already. It wasn't, you've probably heard this story, this is the best geophysical targets. I think we're going to hit there. I'm not going to tell stories out of school, but we missed on our first set of drilling at Underworld, and I remember Rob telling me, I've got an idea for our secondary target. And that turned out to be the discovery.
Right.
So some things look fantastic, don't turn out to be it's a funny industry.
Okay.
So that's what I focus on, and Barranquilla has given me that opportunity. When we took over this project, I think we were 40 million market cap, now we're at 400, but I've seen companies like this in a market that I think we're about to see have a lot higher multiples and multiple re-ratings based on fundamentals. Right. So I've got that. I just need to articulate it.
Great. Michael, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
Where can we learn more about your company?
www.aftermathsilver.com.
Right, we'll put the link.
And on there's, I think, the contact numbers for the CEO, Ralph Rushton, and myself, and people are welcome to call us direct if they have any questions, or fire us an email.
We'll put the links down below. Make sure to follow Aftermath Silver. Appreciate your time, Michael.
Thanks, David. Nice meeting you.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe.